Hi everyone, welcome back to the Full Stack Web Development, and I am your instructor, Dr. Abbas Malik. And if you haven't subscribed the channel, then please subscribe so that you can get the notification of the new videos. So this is the point where we left our last lecture, where we have implemented our GET request to read all the data from our students table. So just give you a quick recall that we opened our MySQL database in the XAMPP dashboard. We imported the SQL file. That file actually create the students table and also insert some records inside it. And then we come to our index file, and this is the index file. Here it is. So first of all, what we did, we installed the Express and the MySQL 2 libraries in our projects. Then we created our web application using the Express, and then we create a um, database connection, and then we check that database connection is successfully connected or not, and then we implemented some GET requests. And this is the GET request where we are more interested, where we left our last lecture, that we received that request at the address of the slash data slash students, and then we are going to run a query to read all the data from the students, and that will is going to return back to the client. And just to let me run the server, so we can say that npm run dev, and this is we are going to use the node utility so that we can actually run it. The issue I think that is there, we have not started our XAMPP server. So what we need to do, we need to start that server. Okay, so let's quickly run that one, and then you will see that everything is working, and then we are getting back the responses from our server. So now the server is running. So let me come back here and then save it. And now if you see that database is connected successfully, and now if we just try to use our postman to that we have the request that we have created here, this request, if we just send that request, we will get back a response. So it is actually return me an array of the objects, array of the JavaScript, or you can say that the JSON objects, which contain, each object contain or represent one specific record inside our students table. So that is the point where we left our last lecture. We send the request on that specific URL, and this request will be accepted by our server. And in this case, that is a myapp.js file which is running right now, and then we send the query to the database server using that backend server, and then we receive error or data from our database management system, or DBMS, and then we send back that record to the client. So now the next thing that we want to, we can test that specific request using either the browser directly. We can type in that address directly in the browser and it will show us the results, or we can use our Postman application to test that request that it is working or not. The next request that we want to implement is a post request, and then we are going to send that request on that specific URL slash data slash student. And because now we want to insert a new record, it means that we need to add some data inside the request. So that request will contain the new information of the data that we will be using to create a new record inside it. Okay, so if you look at that, first of all, inside from the request, we are reading its body and getting out all those information like name, gender, semester, and the major, and then we are saving that into a student's object. And then we are writing the SQL query that is an insert into a students. We have the name, gender, semester, and the major. These are the names of the columns. ID value is auto-generated, so we don't need to provide that one. And then we provide those values: student.name, student.gender, student.semester, and student.major. The one thing that is very important to understand here, Name is a string value. Gender is also a string value. Semester is a number. And then if you look at the major, it is also IES or CS or SE. That is also a string. So for the string values, I am actually enclosing them into the single quotes inside that query. And the same is true here for the gender as well. But because this semester is a number, I don't need to enclose that value inside these single quotes. Okay, so for all the string value that we want to use or write inside the query, we have to enclose them into a single quote. So we are actually marking them as a string value. And if we don't do that, then it will create a runtime error. The We will not be able to run our query inside our database management system or the MySQL. And once we have created that query as a string value, then we are using the database connection variable, and then we are running the query. The first parameter is the query that we have just created here. And the next is a callback method. Once this database connection execute this query, if there's an error or a result, it will send me back those things. Okay. So now what we want to do here, we want to test these things. Okay, so I will go into a further details on the results. Okay, while we are implementing that thing, right now we are just sending back the record has been added if there is no error, but we can also look at that results. It also give me the affected rows, and affected rows will how many rows has been affected. So if normally when we are inserting one record, it will be one record, that value will be one, and if that value is one, it means that we are certain that this record has been inserted inside our database table. Okay, so using that information, we are going to, so let me quickly come back to this one and then start implementing that request here. So first of all, we say web app dot, which is a post request, and the URL is slash data slash student, and then we need to provide the request comma response, and then we have the method. Okay, so in that method, first of all, what I need to do, I need to create a student is equal to, so we can say that name, that will be equal to request dot body dot name, and then we have the next thing that we have a gender. So we can yeah, we don't need to provide something like this. We can say gender, and we say request dot body dot gender. Then we have the semester, and then we can say request dot body dot semester. Then we have the major, and then we can say the request dot body dot major. Okay, so in this way, we have actually unpacked that request object and read its body information, and then from there we are reading the name value, gender value, semester value, and the major value, and assigning it. So we are creating that data that we want to insert. The next thing that we want to do here is the let me make it a constant because it is not going to change, so we will make it a constant here as well. The reason is that if accidentally we don't want to change those values, so we make sure that we are not accidentally changing those values which are coming from the client. Okay, so we say now we are going to use this tick. So tick is actually help us to create a string literal values. So we say insert into students. So we need to provide the name, then we have gender, make sure that we are writing this right spelling here, uh, semester, and then we have the major, and then we need to provide the values, and then those values are actually what you can say that I will just put those values here, and then here I need to enclose the name inside. So first of all, I say dollar, and the use of this literal is very important, because now I can just write the dollar and the curly brackets, and inside I can just write the student dot name. So I can write the code inside that string as well directly, and that will make our life much more easier. So again, for the gender, we need to click that again dollar, and then we say student dot gender. So we are accessing that variable name directly inside. And then we say again for the semester, we don't need to enclose in the single quotes. Why? Because this is a integer value. So we can just say that semester, and then finally we need to single quote, enclose that into single quote, and then we write the major value from the student object. So once we have implemented that specific, what we can say that the query, now we can use the dbcon dot query. We want to run that query, and we say SQL query, and then this is going to in the callback method, either it will have the error or it will have the results. Okay. So now, as I told you, first of all, we can say that if there is an error, then we can just simply print that console.log. We want to log, we can say db error, and then we can say that error dot message. So we can print that message, and then of course we can say that we want to throw that error. Okay. And then if that is not the case, then we need to check if. Okay, let me first, what I will do, I will just console.log. I want to log these results. Okay, so once I have logged that results, then you can see that then we say if results dot affected rows, then we are going to send back some response to the client. So okay, so we can send back if we look at the slides, we are just sending back a H2 tag where say one record has been added. So, but it is not necessary that we always do that. So let me first, okay, let's do that first, and then we will see that if we want to do something different later on. So we say response dot send, and we want to send back a H2 tag and slash h2 tag, and then we are going to write that one record has been added. And if that is not the case, if if that affected row is 0, due to some reason there is no error, but result affected row is 0, it means that we have not added. So we can say that here, what we can say that record it has been added. So we say unable to add, or the one record addition is unsuccessful. Okay, so we assess based on the affected rows, we are sending different responses back to the client. So we are trying to make our understanding more. So first of all, what we did, we open our request. Okay, this request that is coming in. So we open that, where is that request here? So we open our request here. First of all, what we did, we read the informations out of that request. Then we created a insert SQL query. And then using that SQL query, actually we run that query on our database management system. And then we have a call. Once it finished the execution of that query, it will run that execute this specific method here. And in this method, we are checking first that if there's an error, then we show that message in the console, which is actually this command prompt here on the server side. And then we are throw that message, throw that error. It means it will create a runtime error inside our program, and then it will stop that executing that thing. The next thing is that we are printing whatever the results are coming from the server, and then if there is row has been affected, it means the number is 1. Then we are sending this message. If that row is not affected, or is this value is 0, then we are sending a different method that we are unable to insert in your report. So now the point is that this query, I mean, inside, what you can say that if we look at our other query, the get request, so we can just simply say that localhost colon 3000, which is the request which is coming in. Then we have a slash data slash students. And if we do that, then we are also getting back those responses. But we cannot send that request, that post request, using this method. So for that purpose, we have to use that this a postman to send a request. So what we will do, will come in our collection that we are using to test our application. So we say that we want to add a new request, and inside we say that it is a local host colon 3030 slash data slash student, and then we change the type that it is a post request. The other thing that we need to understand, that we need to provide those values, so we are saying that when we come in, we want to read from the request body, we want to read the name. From the request body, we want to read a gender. From the request body, we want to read semester and the major value, and then saving them into a student object. So we need to provide that information inside the request as well. So now if you look at that, we have a body, and then from that body, we will select the raw, and then here we make sure that we are not selected the JSON or JavaScript. So we will say JSON here. And now we can write the values, name, and then here I can give any name, for example, Abbas Malik. Okay, and then put a comma. The second thing that we need to provide is the gender, and make sure that spellings are correct that we are using. And then we say, for example, male, and then we are going to say that it's not small capital, it's a small one. And then we say semester, for example, 6. And then we have the major, and then these key values I'm also putting in the double quotes. So make sure that you are putting them into the double quotes. Every key value must be a string inside a JSON. This is a standard JSON format, so we have to follow those rules. Okay, and this is a value which is again a string value, so we put into a double quotes. So this is also a string value, we put in a double quotes. This value is a number, so we don't need to enclose them into a double quote. But major is also a double quote, so we say IS. Okay, and now we actually, inside this request, the type of that request is post. The URL on which this request is going, it is this one, and then that is here. Uh, And then inside the body, we have provided the information that we want to send. So now we are all set to send that request. And let me put it up there, so that we can see the console values which are going to be printed when we send that request. So let me send that request and see what happens. So if we look at that, we say preview. So we say cannot read properties of undefined name. Okay, so now the issue is that because we are putting the things inside the what you can say that inside the request, so we need to make sure that we are enabling our web application to read that data from our. So we need to write these two lines inside our uh, project first. So first of all, where we are created that application, so right after that one, we can say that it's web app dot use. It uses the, what you can say that, express dot url encoded. And then we can say that we need to provide that extended colon true. Okay, so once we save that, then we say web app dot use. Again, it is using the express.json. Okay, so once we have written these two lines, we written these two lines. So what we are doing here we are enabling to open up that encoded data which is coming with the post request inside the body, or delete request, or the put request, so that we can read. We are enabling our web application to read that data from the body. Okay, so now again, if we just go back here and then send that request again, so now you can see that one record has been added. So let me quickly show you the console. So if you look at that, this is the what you can say that the results which is being printed from this one, from this line number 61. The this one has what you can say that printed this information here. And if you here you say the field count is 0, affected row is equal to 1, inserted ID. So it is telling me that the new record which has been inserted, its ID value is 31. And any other information if there's a requirement. And then we have a server status, then we have warning. So we can say that if the ID insert ID is 31 and the affected row is equal to 1. So based on these two values, we can make sure, or we can decide that this record has been inserted successfully or not. So in this way, we have implemented that post request which actually insert. So the first of all, the type of the request coming in, and then the URL on which that request comes in. And then from the request, we are reading the data, and then we are creating the insert query, and then we are executing that query on our MySQL database. And then if there is an error, then please, we want to show that error and then throw that error, and it will stop our problem. And but of course, we don't want to console it because we understand that what is affected. So affected row will make sure that data, if that value is 1, it means that the one row has been affected inside the database. It means one row has been added, one new record has been added. Okay, and if that is 0, it means there is no record has been added inside our database. So this is what you can say that our and then of course we can check that information. We can send that request using the using the postman. And then we need to specify these two things: the type of the request, the URL, and then of course we need to body, we select the raw and the JSON, and then we need to provide those values. And as I told you, that these key values will always be in the double quotes. Okay, so in this way, we have implemented that request. So the next request that we want to implement, again, we want to implement a GET request on that specific URL. In the previous GET request, we use the students, okay? But here we are not using the student, we just say student. It means that rather than reading all the records, we want to read only one record from our student table. And then, of course, we can, so let's first implement that request. So okay, so we come after that post request and we say web app dot get. We want to get request, and then we say slash data slash students, and a student, not students. So if you look at that, this request is also on the slash data slash student. Okay, and this request is also on the same URL slash data slash student. But the point is that this type of request is post, and this type of request is get. And then the system automatically identify that it is a uh, of course, first of all, it will identify the URL, but it also look at the type. So if it is a post request, it will execute this method. It will handle that request using this method. But if it is a GET request on the same URL, then it will use this method to process that request. So first of all, what I need to do, I need to create a query. So I will say SQL query, and that will be, again, I will just try to use that string literals. So we will say select a static from students table. And then here we have a where command where the ID is equal to, we can say that request. We need to provide that value because we want writing the code. So we say request dot body dot ID value. Okay, so we need to provide that. What we are saying, inside the request there is the body, and inside the body we have an ID value. So we want to read the only one record from our students where the ID value it matches with our uh, matches with our what you can say that the ID which has been provided in the body of the request. So the next thing, of course, using the database connection, we need to run the query on the database, MySQL database, and then again we need to have the error, and then we have the noted we say results, and going to match that one. So now the first thing is the same. I mean, if you look at that, if there's an error, uh, print that error message to me and then throw that error. But if that is not the case, now again inside the results, normally what happens when we are reading the data from our database, it return me an array. Okay, array of the objects, and each object represents the data which has been each record inside the database table. Now, if I provide the query or ID value which exists inside the database, of course, then it will return me that one array of one object. Okay. But if that ID value does not exist inside, then it will send me back an empty array. Okay. So now I need to check if this value, I mean, if the results dot length, because it is an array, and then if length is something, I can also check that if it is equal to 1 or is equal to 0. Okay, if I just simply say that this one, it means that if it is 0, then it will be a false value, and if it is not 0, then it will give me something which is like there is some result has been read. So what I need to do, I say response dot send. I want to send back only the uh, results sub zero value. So if we will only, we rather than sending back a complete array. So first of all, let me re let me send that request, and then say then we can see that what is the difference between the if we just directly send the results back, and if we send back the first value in the else part, we can say that we want to send something. So we say response dot send, and then here we are sending back some, for example, h2, and then we say slash h2, and then here we say the ID does not exist in our record. Okay, so we are just telling that if we are unable to read any data because that ID does not exist in our database table, then we are sending them appropriate message back to the client that the ID that you have provided, it does not exist in our record, and if it exists, then we are going to send back the results. Okay, so we have implemented that request. So let's go back to the postman, and then again inside we create a new request, and the type is get, and then we say localhost colon 3030. Okay, we need to provide L is missing here, and localhost colon 3030 slash data slash student. Okay, and then inside again, because we want to send some information inside the body, we click on the body, we make sure raw, and then make sure that this JSON value has been selected, and then here I say ID value, and then we can say, for example, I will send something which is exist on over there, because I know that there are 25 30 records, and the one record that we have added, so that is a 31 record. So if I provide something between less than or equal to 31, I know that this value exists over there. So when I send the request, so now you can see that actually it give me an array value which contains one record. Okay, and then if I just say something like 35 and send that value, so now you can see that it is send me that ID value does not exist in our record. So we can test that thing. So let me again go back here and then show you the difference. If I just comment this line and then I just send this thing, then it will only send me back the what you can say that only send me back the record rather than it yeah, as an array value. So again, depending on the implementation preferences, how you want to implement, because if you are putting that into an array on the client side, you need to open that array, read the first record, show the information to the database, or if you directly send this one, then you don't need to open that array, and then you are just directly what you can say, handling that record, the object of the student table or student record. Okay, so that is how we are going to implement those things. So there are two different ways. So yes, we can show that. The other thing is, I mean, we can send a request again from the postman. And then the next thing that I want to implement, again, it is a get request on slash data slash student, but we are adding one more thing at the end, which will help me to identify, rather than sending this ID value as a body of the request, we are sending them as a URL parameter. Okay, we call it params, and then we using the parameter we can read that information, and then it will change into this one. Okay, so let us implement that specific thing. Okay, so what I will do, I will just try to copy and paste that thing. Okay, and then here, rather than I say slash, and then I say ID value. Okay, and then here, rather than reading it from the, I say params.id. So what it will do, it will, from the parameter, from the URL which is coming from the client side, it will ignore the first part of the URL, and then it will identify which is whatever is coming after this last slash, whatever it is comes into the ID value, and then we are checking that if there exists or not, and then the rest of the implementation exactly the same. The only thing is, in this one we are reading the ID value from the body of the request, and here we are reading that from the URL parameter. Okay, so that is the only difference, but rest of this everything is exactly the same. That doesn't matter that from where that ID is coming from the request's body or URL parameter. Okay, but the rest every is exactly the same, that we are reading one record from our database and then we are sending them back. Okay, so how we can test that thing? Okay, so if I just do that, so reading ID as a parameter, I think that what I need to do, I miss here. It should be params, not, this should not be the, it should be params. Okay, so this is not the right that is shown here, but you can see that I have implemented that thing here correctly. So we can just go back to the client, and then again I just try to again we are just this one is a post request, so we say post student. I'm just giving the different names so that we are not confusing ourselves. So we say in get dash student, and then we are going to create a new request and then give that name get dash student dash param. Okay, so we are just identifying it in a different way. So we say localhost colon 3030 slash data, and I will say that slash, and here I give 25. Now I don't need to go into the body and then give that body, so actually I will just say none, and then there is no body over there, nothing else we need to provide. So okay, so we are giving this one authorization headers dog and blah blah blah. So what we are providing that value of the ID right in the URL. So once we send that request here, so now you can see that it is giving me back the answers. But if I just give that value to 35, which it does not exist in our database, then you can see that it is giving me that HTML that it does not exist in our record. So we have implemented these two different type of get requests. In the one request, the ID value is coming as a part of the body, and in the second request it is coming as the URL. When I say URL, then it means that this value is actually visible to the users, and then they know what the specific value that we are reading right now. Anyone who is standing behind you, he can see that which specific record or which specific ID value that you are reading in. Okay, so this is the two different ways to implement the same thing, but the only thing is how we are receiving the data or the information, ID information from the client, either in the body or we are reading as a parameter. Okay, this is the one thing. And the what else? So next thing that is here, of course, we tested the value that request, and then it will give me back. We can also test, because it is a get request, we can test it in the browser as well. without writing anything. We can just type in that specific URL inside the address bar, and we press enter. It will send a GET request to our client, our server, and then it will send back the response. The next thing that I want to update the information, and again, when we are updating, we need to provide the new values here. Okay, so first of all, okay, so let's implement that thing. Okay, so we say web app dot put put, and then we are giving that slash data slash student, and then we are giving the request comma response. And in this way we are, so first of all, again, we need to read the information out of the request body, the new data that we want to update in for the previous record. So we say uh, student, and then here I say id is equal to request dot body dot id, and then we say name, and then we say request dot body dot name, and then we say that we have a gender, then we say request dot body dot gender. Okay, what is the problem here? Expected, we say constant, we need to provide the equal value here, and then request dot body, we need to provide that, and then we say we have gender, we have semester is equal, we say request dot body dot semester. The same thing we need to do here as well. It's a request dot body, and then we have the major value that will be again coming from the request dot body dot major. So in this way, we have actually created our students. We read the data out of the request body, and then we need to write the SQL query. And SQL query is again, we are putting that into the, we can say that we want to update students, and then we can say set, and then we can say set name is equal to, again, we need to enclose those things, name into the what you can say that is single quote, so that because it's a string value, so we can say student dot name, and then we can come down here, and then we say gender is equal to, again, because this gender is also we what you can say that as, then we say, I mean, string value, so we say gender, then we put a comma here, then we can say that we have a semester, and that will be equal to, so here we don't need to enclose because it is a value which is the integer value, so again a comma, and then we can say that major uh, is equal to dollar, and then we say student dot major, and then we need to make sure that we are enclosing that inside the single quotes. Okay, and then the other thing that we need to here, we say where, I mean, which specific record we want to update. So we can say that id is equal to uh, not student dot id. So here we are telling that we want to update a students table. We set the name with a new value, gender with a new value, semester with a new value, major with a new value, where the id is equal to the id which is provided by the user. Okay, and now we can say dbcon dot query. We want to run the SQL query, and then we have the, again, we have the error and results. Okay, so inside again, we can also use the same. I just copy this thing from here, that whatever the error message is coming in, we show it, and then we throw the message. And then the other thing is, again, because we are updating, again, we can use the same thing here that we have used here, that if the results, for example, it has affected row is equal to 1, and then it means that the record has been updated. So let me say one record has been added, or rather than I say updated, and record updation is unsuccessful. So again, if I just try to show you the complete code here at one place, the first thing is this put type of request is coming at the same URL. Like, we are having get request. We also have this get request here. We also have a post request on the same URL. On the same URL, we are receiving the put request. And then first of all, we are reading the data out of the request body. Then we are writing the SQL query to update the information. And then we are executing the query. And then if there is an error, show me the error message and throw the error. And then lastly, we are checking if the affected row is equal to 1. It means then one record span has been updated. Otherwise, we will say that it is not updated. So one, again, to test that request, because it is a put request, we cannot test it in the browser directly. So we need to create a new request here. So here I say put student, and then here I say what you can say that let me select that one, because we already have selected these things raw, and then change the type to the put, and then id value, or let me id value 31, because this is the new record that we have added. I say name, and then I say I think that we put the Abbas Malik, so I say mg Abbas Malik. I change the name, and then we also have the gender, that is also what you can say that male. And then let me what you can say that semester, let me put it into the double quotes, and then here let me change that value as well. And then we have the major, and let's change that major as well. So first of all, let me quickly get that the value 31, and then show you what is happening over there. So you can see that Abbas Malik Mail, semester number 6, major is IS. So I will just quickly change that to the CS. Okay. And now you can see that. So now we are all set with the request type is put. The URL has been sent. The body has been, provided all those information inside the body. Then we can send that request. And as you can see that it has been updated to record. So how we can test that thing? So we can just simply let me close changes. Okay, what is happening here? Okay, can okay. Okay, so let's just see that. So what I will now if I just do that, so now you can see that it has updated the semester, updated the major, and updated the name of that student as well. So this is how we can implement the implement that put request, which sorry, to update the data inside our database table. Okay, so uh, we can also send the request to, here, we can also send that put request using this, where the ID value is provided as a parameter. So you can see that it is coming as a parameter. The rest of the implementation is exactly the same. So what we can do here, I can just try to copy this thing here, and we can send ID value as a separate parameter. I say slash colon ID value, and whatever that, here I can say my ID or something. Then of course here I need to say that I want to read the params, and then I say my ID. So if I say ID, then it will be ID. If with the my ID, then this will be my ID. So here we are actually defining a variable name that we are going to use inside our code. So that's why you can specify whatever you want to the identifier that you can't want to use it. And if you look at that here, rather than reading the ID value from the student's request body, we are reading that from the ID from the parameter. Then of course what I need to do, I need to go back here. I create a new record here, and then I can just say that I say put dash student dash param, and then here I say that this is a put request local colon 3030 slash data slash students student slash 31. Okay, and then I go into the body, I say raw, and then I say it's a JSON type, and then here let me quickly copy these informations. Okay, from here and put it here. Okay, so here I don't need to provide the ID value, but we need to provide the name, gender, semester, major value, because we are providing the ID value as the URL parameter. Okay, so we are providing that one. Once we have implemented that thing, we can just simply send that request, and as you can see that it is sending me back. If I just try to see something like this 35, and then of course it will not exist over here, record updation is unsuccessful because we cannot find that specific record inside our database table. Okay, so in this way we can implement that request here using the parameter to send the ID value. And then the last request that we want to implement is a delete request. So we want to delete some data. Again, we want to send the ID value as a body of the, as a body of the ID, or you want to send it through the, what you can say that you can send it through as a parameter of URL parameter slash ID value. So again, depending on which specific requirement has been given you, maybe we ask you to use the parameter, or maybe we ask you to use the body. So accordingly you need to implement that request. Okay, so let's implement that request, the last request, and then we can finish our lecture at this point, and then we in the next lecture we will talk about the database validation on the server side. So we say web app dot, we say delete request, and then again the URL slash data slash student, and then in this one we will see that the uh, ID value is coming as the uh, body of the request. So first of all, what I need to do here is that we say let SQL query, and that will be equal to this, and we say delete from students, and then we can say where ID is equal to, we say request dot body dot ID. Okay, so it will read that request body and then find out the ID value, and then we say db on dot query, and then we say SQL query, and then we need to provide the two values, which is the first value is the error, and second value is the results. Okay, and then again, if I just try to copy this error part here, if there is an error, show me that error message, and then throw that error. In the else part, again, we can use the same thing here, that is here. So if the one record has been deleted, it means this affected rows will be one, and then so one record has been deleted, and then if that is not the case, it means the due to some reason we are unable to delete that record because the ID value which has been provided, it does not exist in our database. Deletion is unsuccessful. So we have implemented that delete request. So let's check this thing using the postman. So we come down here, create a new, so we say delete dash student, and then here we select the delete request, and then we can say that it is a localhost colon 3030 slash data slash student. Okay, and then of course, because we are sending the informations inside the body, so we select the body, we say raw, and then select the JSON value, and then here I say ID is equal, for example, I first let me check that they if does not exist in server record. So when I do that, so you can say deletion is unsuccessful, that is coming in. But if I provide the right value, for example, the 31 is the record that we have just added during this lecture. So when we add that one record has been deleted. And if I just try to go into that get all students, and then send that request again, so you can see that we have the 30 record, but the 31 record is not longer there, and then we cannot do that. So that is our, what you can say, that we have implemented. Then we can also send that request as an ID value, so we can implement the same request, but provided that the ID value is coming as a URL parameter rather than the body of the request. So here we can say that slash colon ID value, and then here we can just simply say that params.id. The rest of the implementation will remain exactly the same. We also need to add a new request. So we say delete request, and then we can say that delete student. And if we look at that, we will say there is no ID value. We say 35. 35. So when I say 35, when you send it, it says deletion is unsuccessful because we have not such record over there. So what I will do, I will just try to post a new record over there and send that request. And when you send that request, actually, it has added the record number 32 because 31 is already being used. And now if you look at that, this 32 record has been added over there. So let me come back here in the new request, which is where is, we also have the body is none slash data. We have a delete student. Okay, so we need to delete dash student dash parent. Okay. And then here we need to provide 32 here. When I send 32, so you can see that it is saying that the record has been deleted. And if we just come back to read all the records, send that record again, then you can see that that 32 record has gone. It's no longer there. So that is how we can implement the all different type of requests. So these are the different type of the, we can also specify. We will talk about that in the next lecture, how we can specify the status of different type of the request, and then we also see how we can validate the data. So that's all for today. Thank you very much. If you have enjoyed this lecture, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.